For decades, the dominant narrative around personality disorders has focused almost entirely on environmental causes, particularly trauma or bad parenting. It's a story we've heard over and over again. They act that way because of their childhood. But here's the truth. Modern science tells a very different story. Advances in behavioral genetics, neuroscience, and developmental psychology have fundamentally reshaped our understanding. Today, we now know that personality disorders are neurological conditions with strong genetic and biological foundations. Extensive twin family and adoption studies have shown that personality disorders are highly heritable. In fact, many of the traits that underlie these disorders, like emotional instability, impulsivity, aggression, and hypersensitivity, are among the most genetically influenced traits ever studied. For example, Torgerson and colleagues found that cluster B personality disorders have heritability rates up to 71%. Other researchers reported narcissistic traits to be up to 77%, with little influence from shared environment. And according to the DSM-5-TR, borderline personality disorder is 5 times more common among first-degree biological relatives. What's also important to note, a history of childhood trauma, like sexual abuse, is neither necessary nor sufficient to develop BPD. That's a major shift away from the outdated trauma-only model. More recent studies have gone even deeper. Behavioral geneticists, like Fontaine and Viting, have demonstrated that shared environmental factors account for very little variance in personality disorder development. Instead, what really matters is additive genetic influence. And that's been confirmed by genome-wide association studies. Genome-wide association studies have shown that personality disorders are polygenic. That means they're shaped by the combined effect of many small genetic variants that together create a large impact. A 2015 meta-analysis by Polderman and colleagues found an average heritability of 49% across all psychological traits, including those most associated with personality pathology. So again, the research is clear. These disorders are largely genetic, not simply the result of a troubled childhood. But this isn't just about genetics, it's also about the brain. Personality disorders involve measurable differences in brain structure and function. These brain-based patterns are replicable, stable, and most importantly, heritable. In other words, we're not just seeing behavior, we are seeing the biological blueprint behind the behavior. Long-term developmental studies support this even further. Children with early temperament vulnerabilities, like emotional reactivity or callous-unemotional traits, are more likely to develop personality disorders later in life. Viting and colleagues found that callous-unemotional traits in children are 67% heritable, a strong predictor of later narcissistic or antisocial traits and behavior. And it's not just what children experience, it's what they evoke. Wang and Dieter Deckard explain a process called gene-environment correlation. That's where a child's inherited traits actually shape the kind of environment they experience. So the idea that the environment causes the disorder actually flips on its head. The disorder shapes the environment. Let's return to one of the most persistent myths, that personality disorders are simply the result of trauma, especially childhood trauma. While trauma can be a contributing factor, it is not the root cause. Petrosino and colleagues point out that treatment models based only on trauma are ineffective for individuals with biologically rooted personality dysfunction. And psychologist Carol Tavris critiques the ongoing reliance on pseudoscientific trauma theories, calling on the field to evolve when evidence contradicts outdated models. The message here is simple. Trauma matters, but it's not the whole story. So why does any of this matter? Because misunderstanding the origins of personality disorders leads to misguided treatments, misplaced blame, and unrealistic expectations. We need to stop saying it's the parent's fault. Just heal your trauma and your disorder will go away. Understanding the biological and genetic underpinnings of personality disorders will allow us to manage these disorders better, both personally and professionally. And it also explains why traditional therapies, like insight-oriented or trauma-only models, fail with personality disordered individuals. Research by Malloy and Rivas even shows that individuals with severe personality disorders may create environments that reinforce their behavior, something we now understand through trait-environment feedback loops. So here's the takeaway. Personality disorders are not caused by trauma. They are complex neurological genetic conditions. They are deeply rooted in genetics, biology, and temperament. If we want to understand these disorders and we want to mitigate their impact, we have to lead with science, not myth. If this video gave you something to think about, please leave a comment and check out my book, The Nature and Nurture of Narcissism, for a more comprehensive breakdown of the science. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Peter Salerno, and remember to keep thinking critically.